We sold our house in the suburbs and bought 12 acres and have been living in a canvas bell tent for the past 7 months. We're going to be staying in here while we build our house, and it's always been a talking point for our family, so come and have a look. So this is a 7-meter diameter canvas bell tent. It is the Sibley 700 ProTech quad door bell tent, and it's by Canvas Camp, and we bought it from a online retailer in Australia who we don't recommend, but it has a 4-meter center pole that holds up the center of the tent, and it's got the 4 doors, each 2 meters tall. You only really have to duck if you're like super tall, but I think, yeah, so you kind of have to duck with your,
a little bit with my hat on.
With your hat on. It has ventilation zippers on the side walls, on every wall. The walls actually like unzip around the whole entire tent and roll up, and you can have the tent actually separated from the floor and have it all open. The sides are 10 centimeters high, so when you have like torrential rain and the water's flowing, it doesn't wash up into your tent. We haven't had any water come into the tent from the flooring, which has been great. We have had water come in through like rips and tears and a stove jack, which I'll show you soon. But otherwise the floor's been awesome. We use it to sleep in and store our clothes. And we also have a mattress on the floor for our 2 toddlers, so they can just come to us whenever they want, and a nice big drawer for all of our baby clothes. When we first moved here onto the block, all 6 of us were sleeping in here. So we also had our 2 older sons sleeping on air mattresses on the floor. And over time, we gave them their own space. So now they're sleeping in a caravan. The 2 of them have a caravan to themselves, which they love. You can see that it's big enough to fit our king bed and the frame. It definitely takes the edge off being able to sleep in a real bed. Over here, we have a stove jack. This tent has got that pitch in the middle. The purpose of the design of this tent is to be able to facilitate circulation of air. So this is a suitable tent to have a fireplace. So we have like a little camping fireplace, and it's portable, and it has a chimney or a flue, and it goes out through this rubber stove jack outside. We installed this, it comes separate. Basically, you just have to like cut a hole in the canvas, and it secures on with these nuts and bolts, and the flue goes out here, and so all of the smoke from the fireplace goes out of the tent. And if you've used a wood stove before, you'll know that when you open the door to stoke the fire and put more firewood in, a little bit of smoke will kind of billow out, especially when it's like restoking and it's starting to like heat up again. That's why this pitch is really great, because all the smoke goes up into that pitch, and so you don't get carbon monoxide poisoning and die. When we were first learning to use it, we did have some problems with smoke, and we had to like open the tent up to like ventilate it and stuff. It's actually a stove, like you can cook stuff on top of the steel, but we just use it as a heater. Yeah, it was great. We were able to keep this warm enough for all of us. On really, really cold nights, we had it like drop down to like -5, like right before the sun rises, which is super cold. And we would kind of like all scooch around the fireplace. It was charming and it was cute, and we really loved it. We're looking forward to dragging the wood fire heater out once it cools down again. It was definitely like one of the highlights of being able to stay in this tent. So the way that we have it set up, we have an extension lead that we've run from our meter box that we had installed. That way we can run air purifier in here, because I don't know if you've noticed or not, but there's like lots of mold on the canvas, and that's just because it's just so humid. There isn't really anything you can do about it. You could open the doors to like increase ventilation, but in summer here the humidity is just shocking. I think it's like nearly 90% humidity right now. I thought maybe because we don't have any trees shading us and it's in full sun that we wouldn't have a problem with mold. These canvas tents are notorious for mold problems, that we would be an exception, but we weren't, and now we've got mold kind of very generously sprinkled all over the canvas. It's just high maintenance, and you just have to clean it as frequently as you can. The 4-meter pole makes it very inconvenient and awkward to clean up that high. We just run the air purifier to like capture any mold spores, open it up when it's not raining. That's the other problem, is the ventilation helps reduce the mold, but when it's raining you can't open it up unless you buy the awning for the doors, and it will obviously keep the rain out if it's raining, but we don't have those. If I did it again, I would definitely buy the awning doors. But yeah, we're just making do, running the diffuser with like some essential oils that kill the mold spores and clean it when we can get around to it. But we have a fan to help increase the circulation. It's just sitting on the floor right now. And we also have some festoon lights, which are nice and dim, and it's just like perfect for what we use the space for. Come on, Jeffwell. So I'm sure you probably have already noticed the state of the floor, which is not flat. We've had just so much torrential rain this summer. We've had probably several hundred mils over the past 4 to 5 months. Some days we've had like 60 mils in an hour. We're like in a bit of a valley, and so the water like pulls right through our camp, and the water runs underneath the tent base and pulls up under there. And obviously once you're walking over it backwards and forwards, it's made it all mushy. It's like a waterbed. This is it kind of dry now. It was really bad before. We have some footage of it just after it rains, and it's like you have to hold on to something because it's just so mushy and wet in here. So we're actually going to move it today, which is so exciting because it's been here for I think 5 months now. We've already moved it once because of the same issue with a mushy floor elsewhere in the camp. Hopefully it'll stay dry a little bit longer. We have some plans to like kind of keep the water out and like barrier off the tent base from water flowing in. So we'll see how that goes, but that's really exciting. And then what else I want to talk about? So with the canvas, it's just 100% cotton. So it doesn't filter out a whole lot of anything. The only thing really it's good for is just keeping the rain out in the wind, but otherwise lots of infrared still gets in, so it gets super hot in here during the day when the sun's out. At night, it's actually quite nice in here. It cools really quickly. There's nothing really holding on to any heat. So like even in the suburbs, it was so hot at nighttime because the bricks would just hold all this heat and you'd have to open the windows to get the house to cool down. But basically as soon as the sun goes down here, this like cools down. It's really nice here. Jake and I have been really surprised at like how pleasant it's been in the evenings. It's usually around like 20 degrees once the sun goes down, even on those really hot days that are like 37 degrees.
Yeah, I think there's only been 3 nights where I've been really uncomfortably hot.
Yeah,
since being here,
which is high praise coming from Jake. He like sweats in like aircon, so the light can be good or bad depending on how you look at it. I've enjoyed having the light. Like as soon as the sun comes up, you can like see the shadows of the grass coming through into the tent. So in summer here where we live, like right in the middle of summer, the sun rises at like 4:45 in the morning, and we've got toddlers, so they're just like as soon as that light comes up, they're just pinging. That's been a bit of a challenge, but that was just for a very brief period, and now that we're coming into the cooler months, the sun's rising later and later, so it's been okay. I would obviously prefer like more kind of like controlled lighting environment. Yeah, I guess it depends how you look at it. If you're into like calibrating your circadian rhythm, which is like, you know, getting the light in your eyes and stuff like that, move into a tent because it's really good for that. But yeah, like we were definitely like night owls, staying up until like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning back when we lived in the burbs. Now that we're tent dwellers, bed at 8:30, getting up at 5 o'clock. So yeah, I guess it depends how you look at it. I personally like it. I like being up early. I'll go for a run down the country road and watch the sunrise, and it's beautiful. So yeah, it gets hot, bright. I think that's it in here. So come outside and have a look at this guy rope situation. It comes with a dozen guy ropes, and they come with like a normal guy rope peg. And we found that those pegs aren't great for higher winds, which we get here. It's kind of like open country here, and we're like right in a valley, so we get these real barreling winds.
Like right now.
This is actually like a light breeze compared to what we've had. We've had like up to 80-kilometer winds.
Yeah, I need to raindrops.
Here, it's between 70 and 80, and the tent has fallen before. Actually, no, sorry. Half the tent has fallen. We've had like a whole door bent over. I have some footage.
I'll cut to it.
Yeah. It's very intimidating when it gets really windy here. So we figured that we would just get some bigger tent pegs, and they have been the perfect solution for that. So they're like 30 centimeters. I think we got them from Bunnings, and they've held all of these guy ropes in since we've started using them. So when it rains a lot, usually we get these super windy days, which is just such a recipe for this whole thing falling down because the ground's super soft, and so the guy ropes and the tent pegs just slip right out. But with these bigger pegs, they've held in place the whole time, which has been awesome. Because it's so tall and we have these really big doorways, the ropes have to come out quite far to keep the whole thing taut. If you're short on space, this is not ideal for like small spaces. You have to like step around it. It's hard to mow around, as you can see. Yeah, put that on the list. We tried to like mitigate how much space these guy ropes take up by using these, wait, where are they? They've all fallen down. Oh, yeah. By using these poles, and they're actually like these extension poles for the carport that we built. And I was like, I got a great idea. Why don't we make guy rope poles? Which this is not how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to put the pole out here and put them in the ground, and then you tie the rope to the poles. But I was like, I'm not doing that. And I just stuck them in here. And it worked. It worked for a while, but now we've got like little holes in here because it's just sharp steel on the edges. You could probably make it work like this if you put something over the steel to protect the canvas, or maybe if you cut like a tennis ball in half and put it on there, that would work. But I think we're just going to ditch these poles, probably put the guy ropes back out, patch these bad boys up. Every point where the guy ropes attached to the canvas have holes in it now because of those poles. Definitely avoidable, so don't do that. Yeah, we've had a little bit of rain come in because of some of the holes. There's like some wearing down underneath there. I don't want to put my hand on there because there's been spiders under there, but we've had some holes under there and like water's gotten in them, especially when it's super windy and it's raining sideways. What else? I think that's about it. Let's move the tent and then we'll talk about what we would do differently if we had to do it again.
Which we won't.
Which
Ever.
We're definitely not ever going to ever again. We're in the middle of emptying out the tent. We're nearly there, just the bed and the rugs, but as you can see, it started raining. So convenient. And all of our stuff's out here in the rain. It's a little bit damp. It should only spit, just a little trickle, less than a mil, says the forecast. Not that that's super reliable, but not too sinister. Very annoying there. Sorry, that was my mouth the whole time. We just moved the mattress. I don't know if you can see this, but there's chicken poop under my bed. Chicken's been sneaking in here. I'm hiding under my bed. So now we're just taking down the tent, pulling out all the guy ropes. Once that's done, we come inside and we take these A-frames that go over the doors. We take those down. The last step to get the canvas down is this center pole just here. You just have to lift it and like basically slide it out. It smells really bad in here. Hello, Guthrie. Do you like it?
Moment of truth. So walk it over this way. Oh, yuck. Yeah, it's gross. Well, it's been a couple of weeks since we moved the tent, and it's been really lovely having a firm, solid floor to walk on for the first time in a few months. But now we're going to have a chat about what we would do differently next time if we had to do this whole thing from the start.
If we had to hypothetically camp again, God willing, this will be the last time we ever have to camp. Yeah, so we've had lots of time to think about what we would do differently to make it easier to maintain, more cost effective, more practical, more functional. And I think one of the things we both agreed on was probably just getting a smaller tent. When we first moved here, the tent was like our sleeping space, but it was also where we spent the most amount of time. Understandably, it needed to be bigger to be able to fit all 6 of us. But now that it's just us and the baby sleeping in here, and we're not really in here during the day, it doesn't really make sense to have a 7-meter diameter tent. The issue with it just being so big is that it's super expensive to maintain. Like the sheer amount of fabric to waterproof every 6 to 8 weeks of continual use, and then all the other like treatments for washing, cleaning, mold treatments and stuff, that you have to buy bottles and bottles of these really expensive products, and to be able to do it every 6 to 8 weeks, you know, you're talking pretty close to $1,000 every time you have to do the maintenance routine. It's just made it so much more expensive, I guess, than what we initially anticipated. We went with the tent because it was one of the cheaper options for what we intended to use it for, which was like a short-term living arrangement, and it was the fastest. It's literally instant. It takes 10 minutes to set up.
Yeah, with 2 people.
So we were coming from my mum's house to this property, and we needed something to go up straight away. We didn't have, there was literally nothing here. There's a hay shed that's not suitable for living in, and probably too close to the neighbours for rowdy children, so we needed something quick. Also, something that we could heat up. That's why we went with this bell tent, because it's got the stove jack, like I mentioned earlier, and we moved here in winter, so we were getting like -5-degree evenings, and it just would not have been appropriate to expect the entire family to bear those really bitter cold evenings and mornings, like literally ice this thick on like the water bowls of the animals, and we had to choose something that was suitable to heat up, and this was the cheapest and the fastest and the easiest to heat.
But kind of looking back at the cost of this, we realise now that we could have built a second carport for basically what we paid for this whole structure.
Yeah. And that doesn't even take into consideration the amount of money you need to invest in this to maintain it, to basically stop it from falling apart. Not that it's falling apart, but it's not designed to just be used ongoing without maintenance.
Yeah, so if we did do this again, we would have our carport that we do now for our kitchen, dining, living, homeschool room, and then we'd have a second carport that would have 2 or 3 bedrooms in it and a little toilet block. Keep all the family under one roof, so we're not separated, because at the moment it's just us and the babies in the tent, and then Micah and Zephy, the older boys, are in a caravan.
Disconnected?
Yeah, the families are disconnected at the moment, all sort of living under separate roofs.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to sort of all be in this the one space.
Yeah. I guess being able to have a little bit more foresight in terms of how long things were going to take. Yeah, we would have got a smaller tent that we just made do with while we built 2 carports. I guess just decommission the tent once we were able to move into the second carport.
Make it a play space.
Yeah. I think one of the issues with this setup was that we weren't expecting to be in the tent as long as we have been, and that's mainly due to the issues we've had with the driveway and not being able to start the build, coming on to 4 months that we've had building approval and we haven't been able to break ground. So that was part of the issue of the camping setup that we have at the moment. It wasn't meant to be lived in this long, but obviously these things, you can't account for every single variable, and you know, we're willing to roll the punches, so that's not an issue. But in terms of functional, sustainable setup, that's what we would have done.
What is something you've learnt from living in a tent in the last 8 months?
Something I've learnt is how pretty the stars really are. We see the stars every night now. Like, just really being able to enjoy them. You just don't really think to go outside and wander around and look at the stars, but I've really enjoyed that, and I think I'm going to miss it once we get into a real house. What about you?
For me, I've learned a couple of things. I've learned how little we actually need to live comfortably and be happy. And I've definitely learned to appreciate creature comforts, like a fully working shower and a flushing toilet, because we've been using a chemical toilet for the last 8 months, and I've had to take that to an off-site location every 3 to 4 days to empty, and that is definitely not my favourite job on this homestead.
The most dreaded chore.
I come home and have a really hot, really long shower,
Yeah.
every time I empty it.
Well deserved though.
So that's just been a very, very big adjustment. Yeah.
I think the question that I get asked the most is, how do you do it? And like, that's very understandable. I would probably ask that question too if I found out a family of 6, 4 homeschooling boys were living in a tent and a carport. And I guess because of the demand of the space, which is 4 boys homeschooling, were home all day, every day. And also Jake twice a week when he works from home. There's a lot of pressure on the spaces to be functional. I guess you have to go into this kind of quality of life and lifestyle very intentionally, because it's not conducive to functionality, and there's a lot of friction with this lifestyle. My response to that question is just simply, how do you make any sacrifice, really? How do you pay insurance or go to the gym at 5 o'clock every morning? Or like, even parents will be able to relate to this, parents of multiple children specifically, when you have a kid who a baby who goes to the toddler phase, and you're like, that was crazy, but let's have some more kids. And you go into those successive children knowing exactly what you're getting into and what's coming up with the toddlers, but it's just such a short, temporary season with just so much more to gain outside once you pass that season. And I feel like that analogy really resonates with our experience living in a tent. And I guess as well, like, we're still in that toddler phase. Our 2 youngest are still toddlers, and so that similarity is very real to me. I very much would compare this kind of lifestyle to what it takes to get through the toddler phase.
That's right.
Obviously, it's a very unique lifestyle, which comes with some unique memories. So what's been some of your favourite memories since being in the tent?
I've got a couple of favourite memories. In the first initial 5 weeks living here, before we even had power connected, the State of Origin was on, and we bought like a little projector that we run off our battery banks. And we had my brother-in-law's family over. We had some food, and we were all set up in here with camp chairs and mattresses, and we put the State of Origin on the tent wall, and we just all hung out for the evening, and that was a special time. We had the fire going, and that was just a really, actually the first time we even really entertained.
I think even though we squished a whole family of 6 into a tent, we're still able to entertain in here and like accommodate others and be hospitable, which I really loved. And like, all the cousins loved it, and they got to hang out in Tita's tent, and that was really cute. We had like jalapeno poppers, and that's a fun memory of mine as well.
One night the boys were sleeping in their mattress, the babies, and they woke up during a storm, so I hopped out of my bed and went to cuddle them, and I just lay there awake watching the lightning just light up the whole tent like a camera flash. The whole thing was just lighting up over and over again, and that was a really cool aspect that you don't really see when you're in a house to that extent.
Yeah, that's right.
See a few flashes through your window, but not your whole entire bedroom lighting up. That was a really, really cool aspect that I'll remember well into the future.
Yeah, I guess really since it's heated up through like spring and summer, we haven't been spending a whole lot of time in here, mostly just to sleep at night once the sun's gone down, and it's actually tolerable to be in here. Really, my most fond memories of this tent is cozying around the fire at night. As soon as the sun would go down, the wind would just get so bitter cold, and so it'll quickly stoke the fire as soon as the sun started setting. There wasn't much to do. We didn't have power, and so we'd kind of just like sit around and just watch the fire and put a kettle on top of the wood heater, and I would lie down on this lambskin wool rug, and just so soft, lay there just like watching the fire, and I'd just fall asleep in front of the fireplace. And I did that so many times, and Jake would wake me up after I'd fallen asleep, and there's just something so comforting and familiar falling asleep in front of the fireplace. It feels like someone that you love is like reading you a bedtime story to sleep. So I really enjoyed that. I'm looking forward to doing that again when it cools down. I'm not really a fall asleep on the floor kind of person, but I'll make an exception for a cute fireplace.
Yeah. If you've made it to this point, thank you for sticking around to the end. We've got lots more content coming out. We'll do a tour of our carport soon. We've got lots of videos coming out with the driveway upgrade, the septic installation, so lots of exciting things coming. We'll catch you in the next one.